Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dillon, I'm your host, and this week is not just, but me and a guest. Matt, our blue collar badass, is signing his largest contract to date, which is going to be a theme in this show of just people dominating, winning work, and kicking some ass. So we're happy to bring back to the show Mortier, who runs Polaris Homes and just all around badass Arte guy, and growing his business like crazy, which I think is a really good spot to jump in. But first, if you haven't listened to the episode we did with Royal, you should go back and listen to that. We'll link that show in the show notes, so you can go back and get Royal's background and what he's up to and what he does at Polaris and everything there. But with that, welcome back to the show, Royal.
Hey, thank you for having me. Glad to be back.
Yeah, man, it's always a good conversation to hear what you're up to and what's going on. And, first, I guess, I hear you're moving or thinking about it.
Yeah. Moving. So we're currently located in Spokane, Washington. Polaris by itself, and we can dive into this, we're 100% remote. So all my people all work from home, or if they want an office, they can go run a small office, which adds definitely a nice element of freedom to it. But basically, I built that into the foundation of Polaris, and then I led that by example. Where last year, I think in 2020, wife and I think and the kids, we were not in Spokane for probably about 3 months out of the year, pretty close to that last year. And now this year, we were actually planning on being fully mobile. We ordered a fifth wheel, and we were just going to pretty much live out of a fifth wheel. But then we decided we found an area of Florida that we really fell in love with, and are in the transition of moving down there. So, yeah. So it's definitely a new adventure. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and then we'll probably actually be living out of the fifth wheel. I would probably say at least 3 to 4 months out of the year, but our home base will be Pensacola, Florida.
Nice, man. As a kid growing up, just as a side note, my parents were farm managers, and this was back in the early 90s with so llamas were super freaking expensive, like 50, 100 grand, like crazy amounts of money for a llama. But they managed a farm, and we drove all around the country in the US, towing a fifth wheel. And I remember sleeping, and we go to all these fairs and shows and all this kind of stuff as a little kid, just driving around the country. So I'd been to like 30 states by the time I was 10, 30, 35. So it's a cool experience, especially with like kids and stuff at times I'm sure annoying, but to be driving around and seeing the sights that the country has to offer.
Yeah, it's also nice if you're running a farm or doing something like that, that's nice, where you're doing it for enjoyment and you're making money with it. What's nice with ours is, I'm a structural engineer. I've got structural engineers and drafters and architects that work with me. They all can work from wherever they're at. We did an unofficial RT meetup in early 2020, and so I was down in Mexico for over 2 weeks. Didn't miss a day of work. Just the work was being done from the beach in a lounger with some tequila.
There you go. Yeah. Hopefully that's just review, right?
Right.
Or emails, let's say.
Yeah.
Which speaking of that, I've seen just in going through social and all that stuff, like you're experiencing pretty tremendous growth here in 2022. You'd mentioned that you've done 50% of the homes you did last year in the first 2 months of this year. How have you managed that growth? And then I guess, what does that also mean for the housing market? But first, how have you managed to handle that type of growth?
Yeah, so a big thing is definitely an investment in our processes. We have cut out we've cut out all pathways of lost time, I guess the easiest way to put it. We built out a PM management that allows our clients to direct enter their projects. They can also monitor their projects as they're going through their process. And then it also has a notification system in it to where we're not having to go and email everybody, hey, I'm done with this. What do you got? I'm done with this. Now you take over. Oh, I'm done with this. It automatically, the second they click a button, it automatically notifies and it moves on to the next person, moves on to the next task. It simplifies the process a lot. That's been a big key aspect of it. Also having the clients directly enter and then be able to track it, it helps with two things. One, I don't have to have an administrative person spend a lot of time doing input. There, where we used to be, the clients would email us the project and then I had myself or an admin person enter the project and then it goes through the process. Now they direct enter, which is basically almost the exact same thing as an email, and boom, it's right in the process. So I mean, we save probably an hour per project in doing that aspect. And then it just trickles on through. So a lot of that is that aspect. The other part is just investing in your people. I've been very blessed to have solid talent come my way with not a significant amount of effort, I guess is the way to put it. But the other part of it is I waited for the right talent. There's one thing where you're just like, oh, that'd be great. No, that'd be great. Well, no, I waited for the right talent. I waited for the people that were trainable. That wanted to learn and wanted the freedoms and understood the freedoms and the potential this company brought to them. And then I invested in them. I invested my time in them. I invested the capital to train them if they needed it. And then in turn, it's a two-way street. I bring things to you so you can grow, but you're helping the company run more efficiently. And then it's just a situation of you gotta stay on top of that. I let my team know I'm not a babysitter. If I have to babysit an individual, that individual is no longer here because they're taking my time away from other things, other people, and other aspects of the company. So I don't babysit. So definitely big key, just business things that are just put into implementation.
That's one. I mean, congratulations, like in making the investments in process and in people. I mean, that's huge and should be congratulated. We talked to a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people, outside of the podcast, just in general, business owners, and the amount of people that don't invest in their people or processes is somewhat astounding to where they can't handle one growth, or it's always in a firefighting mode, right? Where they're handling one thing to the next, which is a lot of what you talked about, and having those processes where, things aren't falling through the cracks because a lot of it's automated. The processes are set up to where at least administratively, it's handled. And I'm sure you've done a lot more on the back end too, and how plans are put together and everything like that as well. But to allow that upfront piece to where, something's not getting entered, so there's a delay getting to, production to then it get down to clients and, everything else. So that's huge.
Yeah. And I love communicating with my clients, but there's some aspects where there's a communication I don't enjoy, which is, where's my project? Because then what am I doing? What's the typical reactive state? Okay, let me track that down. Let me figure it out. Let me find out what's to be done. Where is it at in this? Where's that? I don't have those emails. I don't have those phone calls anymore at all. And I haven't in months, because all they have to do is log into their side of the portal and they can see exactly where their project is at. And then I get an email of, hey, Royal, I see it's in your court. Could we get that today? And then it's okay. Yes, I'll do that. But they get to see exactly where it's at in the process. They know who is responsible for each process that's assigned to them. And it definitely, our clients are extremely pleased with it because it provides complete transparency.
Yeah, I mean, having something like that to where it triggers it, I know like Procore on the commercial side has done more and more of that to where, at least in the submittal side of things, where things are in the whole construction administration part of it. And I haven't really seen a good tool for that on the design side. That's just, I haven't seen one. But for CA, like a Procore, and I think Autodesk is setting up their own solutions. Those have been, much better in transparency from at least the CA side of things.
Yeah, and that can be really nice. And we work with clients. We've taken on a couple jobs in the commercial realm that they were using Procore or similar. It does. It's nice. We built our system specifically for our process, and now we've actually had to go to a situation where we only do new residential. That's it. That's all we do.
How has that focus like helped you guys grow? Is that like another key catalyst for you?
It is. I mean, when we first started, it was a little crazy. Polaris really fully launched what was it, March 3rd, 2020. And then not 2 weeks later, lockdown started and everything. And I parted ways with my prior company and to start Polaris. And it was kind of it's already a scary enough endeavor when you're like, hey, I'm leaving, and then go, hey, like now life is coming to a halt. And then it's like, oh, 2 weeks, and then 4 weeks, and then 6 months, and all that other stuff. So it was a situation where we really kind of had a situation there where it was, luckily I had really well built relationships with clientele that, it was not my intent when I parted ways with my prior firm for them to follow me. But the fact of the matter is they did. And, that really was very, very helpful in having that work to at least help get off the ground in that first year. And then 2021, we really, in the beginning, again, it was a situation of kind of taking what work we could. And then by about mid 2021 is when I realized, hey, the goal of Polaris was to focus on home builders. That's always been the goal. To do new home construction, focus on home builders and purchasers of new homes, and to serve as the in-between, the person that completes the project, because that's what Polaris is Greek for complete. We complete the project from the house plan website firms to house plan website companies to the end user builder. We're that in-between person that gets them to a complete permittable plan set. That's always been the focus. It's everything that's ingrained to us. So really about mid 2021 is when I went, hey, we got to stop with the taking on forensics. We got to stop taking on all these other things. I was able to connect with a couple people that came on as a subcontractor. So I didn't leave my clients waiting in the wings, because it's not been easy to get engineers and architects and drafters. And so I was able to get some subcontractors lined up to service them. And so now as projects still come in, they go to those subcontractors. But our core focus as Polaris is 100% new home construction. And then with that said, with our processes, with how we engineer and design the homes, how efficiently we stay with them, and then just becoming really a subject matter expert on the residential code and the wood design code, and we're starting to do more with ICF. Really, that's benefited us, and it's benefited our clients. One of the best compliments we get from our home builders that we work with is we are saving them in construction costs more than what our fee is. So it's a net positive to them. That's what we want to see.
Win-win for everybody.
Exactly.
well-designed home that's affordable probably is not the right term in this market, but a well-designed home that meets budget, that meets their requirements, and frankly, you can't ask for much more from anybody in this. Well, especially in this market, but even in normal markets, on time, on budget.
Yeah.
That's the goal, right? On time, on budget.
Yeah, and I mean, we're doing 100 homes a month right now. Right. Well, this is our slow time, so we're just under 100 homes. We ended last year averaging over 100 homes, and still our turnaround time was 2 weeks.
Yeah, which is amazing.
I mean, it's like I said, it's about refining the process. I mean, we're in the process of bringing on 5 or 6 customs. Once I got them in the lineup, 2 to 3 weeks out the door.
Yeah, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other things that you mentioned was waiting for the right time for hiring. I know so many times, especially in architecture, engineering firms, that they need somebody, right? They need a body, and they'll pull in. Sometimes it seems like anybody off the street to draft, and here's a computer and here's your logins and good luck. How has waiting for that right person really helped you, not in culture, I'm sure, as well as just overall performance and production capabilities?
Yeah, so the prior firm I was a part of, we had a whole board, and that board kind of is, pretty much anything you needed to do, you kind of had to go before them. You had some free reign as either management or leadership within the company, but it was something that was always kind of came back to that board of the owners, and whether that was their consoling their concerns or just them just having to get their 2 cents in. And one of the things that they kind of put out was, hey, we need to get to a situation of people are working this much beyond their typical hours or beyond their average billable hours before we hire somebody. So you're basically not hiring somebody until you absolutely need to be hiring somebody. What does that do to the people, your team, and the morale of the team? So I'm going to work you guys at an overtime level. And then once I'm working you guys at an overtime level, then I'm going to go, okay, yeah, we need to hire somebody. And then I'm going to go find that person, and however long it takes me to find them, and then bring them on, hope they're a good fit, get them trained up, but I'm not the one fully training them. You guys are training them in addition to already working full time. And then expect morale and that person to be able to, enter into the process easily, and everybody, all of it to go well. And I think we're in a situation where that has been proven time and time again to not be the right way. And unfortunately, it was a situation that was the general stance of my prior company. It was that's how it was. With Polaris, we're very different. I typically run a half to 1 person extra, and that's my preference. And really, I would like to be running almost 1 person extra and bear that expense, because the fact of the matter is if I'm running 1 person extra, okay, yes, there's the added expense of that, but that person extra is not sitting on their hands. They are researching, they are growing, they are helping us go into other paths and processes. And while they're doing that, or they're taking work off of somebody else that I need that can do those things. And while they're doing that, I'm finding work to then market. I'm marketing to those people to then be able to market those services, be able to market those processes, to where then that extra doesn't become isn't an extra for very long. And then I'm shopping for another quality, talented person. And that's kind of the key. And everybody's like, well, what do you do when the market pulls back? That's the risk of running a business, So it's again a situation of I've got to lead us to go forward. I've got to lead us to grow. And if we're properly growing, if the market pulls back, I know that I need to not let anybody go because I've invested a significant amount of time and effort and I've got a solid team to where then when the market comes back and my reputation didn't go anywhere, when the market comes back, I'm still ready to be the person that people come to and get off to the races.
And there's so many good things in there. One is, running a half to even a full person. So you're running 40 hours, extra a week, but really that's divided across the team. So then it's, if you get 4 hours, if you got 10 guys, so you're really at 4 hours extra a person. So you got like an hour extra a day, which is really just like nice enough to where no one is completely stressed or burnout and getting their stuff done. Versus running an hour or two the other way, that's how you burn through people really quick. So I think that's also important to note is, a half to a person's really like 30 minutes, depending on your team size, but it's not much per person, right? That you're running extra, but it gives everybody cushion enough to not have to, they're not burning out at the end of the day. And that's huge.
Yeah, and that's where we, again, I made a lot of mistakes. And if you don't learn from those mistakes and change your processes and change your tactics and just repeat those, that's the definition of insanity. So in making those mistakes, I learned from them. And you basically learn, hey, guess what? People want to know what work is next. People want to know the process that they're supposed to execute their work. 90+% of people, 95+% of people want to come to a job, execute their work, leave their work, and go live their life. Job is not their life. That other percentage, those are the business owners, those are the entrepreneurs, those are the guys getting after it, where essentially we don't have a work-life balance. We've got a work-life circle. And you can't let that push onto your other people. They got to have a situation where they know, hey, I start here, I stop here, and I go on. And that's very important. The other part of it is just the freedoms to know that, hey, I can integrate other things. So that's where it's been very key to me to have, my team members get to choose between a 4-10 or a 5-8 work week. I'm very respectful of their time, that they're not in their regular work hours. I try to let them know well ahead of time, hey, I need you to come in. And they know if I'm asking them to come in, it's something that is really important. And that it's not something I have to sell them on. It's just, hey, this client, we really need to get this process refined. We really need to get this executed and done. It's going to save us a ton of time later, and the client, is going to be much happier, and that's what we want. Okay, let's go. Like that's what happens. Not I got to come in on a Saturday and do that. Like, no, you have to walk to your computer that's sitting at your house and do that work. And guess what? I'm probably working too. And I'm always available by my cell phone, even if I'm not sitting in front of my computer. And so that's the big key to it. So yeah, I definitely learned from a lot of prior mistakes in that aspect, because it did become a situation where what you don't want is your team wasting time trying to figure out what their next task is, because that doesn't help anybody. That actually takes time away from the other people. So when you stay organized with that and you have it properly managed and distributed, it makes it really, really easy for people to know what's next.
Man, there's so many gold nuggets in there. I mean, at the end of the day, it comes, just in what you're saying, trust, right? If your team doesn't trust you, you couldn't ask them to do that stuff and they wouldn't perform. If they don't, have respect, and it goes both ways, they wouldn't do anything like that. Right. There's people that you go above and beyond in your personal life. And there's people that, you don't do those things for, right? And the same translates to business, to work, right? If you like your boss, if you like where you work, you're going to do those things. If you
Right.
don't, you're just not going to do it, right? And you're going to push it off and maybe get to it later, which is, that's a huge thing. The other piece in there that I wanted to really hit on was in training and developing and creating either processes or things that you can sell. And that's really, especially in the engineering world, a unique, which it shouldn't be, but a unique allocation of time and talent to do things that ultimately become marketable, right? For having your people create, whether it's new products, improve processes, and really reward on that is, again, it shouldn't be, but it is outside the norm of like most engineering firms to run some type of, quote, R&D or something like that, to where you're getting better, your people are working on projects that they like, that they enjoy, and usually somebody will show an aptitude to doing some of that, and just allowing them the freedom to do it, they're super happy to go and like work on those additional projects. I know for me, like I did that on my own, and just my boss saying, yeah, that's fine, was a huge like win for me.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's nice to have those things, but it also takes the situation of, you got to have the leadership that's forward thinking and going, hey, if you go, well, hey, we're an engineering firm. Okay, well, what does that all entail? Well, it's this narrow lane here. Okay, well, what about these other things that are, oh, no, we stay in this. And that becomes pretty difficult. And then you have the same thing. I mean, you see this is the same thing with most professions. And with what we've done, we've gone, hey, we engineer residential. That's what we do. Okay, well, what other things are needed that support residential that we basically have the knowledge and the capabilities to also do? So one of those, for instance, is some of the states are requiring MEP design for residential. Don't agree with that, state of Arizona, but they require it. Okay. And so it's become a situation where the mechanical contractors, in most other states, mechanical contractors, they have an in-house person that does the mechanical ductwork design. But in these states, they don't. They go, hey, guess they'll have a mechanical contractor that does kind of the material takeoffs and the estimating for it. But for the most part, they're not doing the actual mechanical design. That's coming from an outside source. And, I don't like listening to complaining, but there's a difference between complaining and constructive discussion. And when a client comes to me with a situation of, hey, we're having this issue, and I hear them repeat that issue, instead of me going, yeah, okay, nice, yeah, no, that sucks, the switch has to flip where you go, okay, is there something we could do there? And so in the situation of MEP, I looked at it and I went, okay, they don't require professional engineer stamp. The mechanical design is actually all software based. I have access to the codes. The plumbing and electrical and gas lines, those are all off of charts and tables out of the building code. I'm not regulating the installation of this. And, and then all the math is basic addition and subtraction. And, for most of that, I can build basic spreadsheets that do the work for me. And then I can compile the professional notes that reference all the code sections, that reference all these things, and have those on my plan sheets. That's all within our realm. That's exactly what I do as an engineer already. I reference codes as an engineer. I design things with math as an engineer, and I put that on to plan sheets with my drafters. Whether it's sticks and bricks or ductwork or plumbing pipes, or it's all the same thing. And so it was like, well, this doesn't require professional engineer stamp. It's all very simplistic. And so we just went to the books. And after about 3 months with R&D with one of my guys and a lot of assistance from outside professionals, we were able to go back to our client and go, hey, I think we can take this MEP design off of these other people's plates, because one of the big issues was, I mean, to give you an idea, Arizona last year, Arizona last year, we did 49 homes for the whole year just in the state of Arizona. We've already done 40 homes by the end of February in Arizona. They're not stopping. The volume that they're building at is insane. And understand that was 49 builders with one builder, and that was for all of 2021, and that was 40 homes for the exact same builder in 2022 by February of 2022. So you can't, they were sending all their stuff to a licensed mechanical engineer, a licensed electrical engineer, to have all these basic residential mechanical, electrical, and plumbing designs done. It's very simple. Really, once you got the processes in place, it's actually very, very simple. And so that's what we did. And we took it off the other people's plates. So now, instead of our client having to submit plans to us, we take 2 weeks to get the structural engineering back to them and the structural plans, and then having to wait 2 to 3 months to get the mechanical, electrical, plumbing back. They're submitting it to us. They're getting their structural back in 2 weeks, and they're getting their MEP back in 2 weeks. So it's a matter of thinking outside that box. And now our next step, our big goal for 2022 is actually to start offering material takeoffs. Because again, it's just, we already have the plans in front of us. We're already working with them. We're already designing them. A material takeoff is just another logical step of additional services, additional offerings that we can do R&D into, train somebody up to do it, and then start offering that as a value add to our clients.
That's huge, man. Like on the MEP side of it too, like, because most licensed engineers coming and doing that, you know, they're coming off of commercial projects, right? Because that's where you need your stamp to do this stuff.
Right.
And they've got their commercial hat on that you need all this stuff, and doing residential is a very different mindset. So like coming into it, and if you don't have the volume to where you're still working on commercial projects, residential is like a side note for most of these guys. So it becomes what you've offered, and because you don't have to stamp them, is a great solution. Like, again, it's not, I mean, it's thinking outside the box, but it was like a logical thing to solve a problem that's needed in the residential space. So very cool, and hats off to you in doing that.
Yeah, it's, you know, it was a mutual benefit. It provides us something more that we can market, which makes us a more marketable company. But it also solves a problem for one of our big clients, one of our main clients, and
Right.
that makes it that's what we want to do. You know, and it's you know, it's one of those situations. Honestly, you know, one of my clients called me and they were, you know, they're like, hey, it's 3 a.m. and I'm down the street and I need a ride home because I can't drive. Probably drive down and pick them up and take them home. You know, nobody would be the wiser. But it's a situation. But this is a different situation in that I'm helping their entire company thrive better, and that's the big thing. So, you know, it was and it's a mutual benefit. So I'm very pleased to offer it. Really looking forward to continuing to offer it, because we know the demand's not going down.
No.
So
Not anytime soon. That's really cool, man. Well, and then, so this goes right into one of the other things I want to talk about is really on materials and the materials market, you know, and you get into doing takeoffs, which I agree is total logical next step. And you have all the information to do that, especially if you're doing full MEP, like that's basically the whole house, right? MEP, arch, structural, like that's everything. So in doing that, what are you seeing across the materials market for availability and just a general outlook on the market right now as it stands here at the beginning of March in 22?
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, there's some things that are occurring with our supply chain that are logistical elements just due to what's going on. But you know, one of the biggest things that's affecting a lot of our supply issues and really house pricing, you really can trickle right back up to government legislation. And, what and unfortunately legislation is this thing that it gets talked about when we're trying to fight something. And the things that greatly affect the entire populace, as far as a lot of things with home building, really aren't talked about in the news much. And it's really unfortunate. So some things that have occurred, and they're happening at state levels and they're happening at federal levels. So we'll talk at state levels. A lot of things that are happening at state levels with housing that is affecting housing prices and just production of housing is what's occurring with energy code implementations and additional regulations as those pertain. So in the state of Washington last year, they passed legislation with a new energy code that was really heavily fought as far as not having a significant return on investment, that added at the time $36,000 to the base cost of construction of a standard as a standard single family dwelling. So that affects obviously the new construction costs, but when you're calculating out the value of a house or you're doing an appraisal on a home, if new construction or homes that are near other homes are now all of a sudden selling for much more because they cost more to construct, guess what? That's not a centralized issue. That starts to affect everybody, because you also have to consider replacement costs. And so, insurance considers replacement costs, property taxes consider replacement costs. So they start reassessing it as like, well, what would it cost to actually replace this home? Well, if I'm increasing the base cost of the average home by $36,000, guess what? Everything else goes up. And now the state of Washington is looking to pass even more regulation that they're estimating the Home Builders Association and BIAW is estimating that's going to be adding almost $50,000. And so that's a 1-2 punch right there. And then you look at, other states that have, like the state of Oregon, they passed a new energy code. The state of Oregon also has a statewide building codes division that adds, I think last I checked, they take 12% of every permit fee. And then what do they do with that? Well, they basically build an entire room of public union people that basically sit around and figure out other ways to regulate construction. And then they also have gone to the point of actually going and taking over buildings' jurisdictions to become their entire building department. So it's very much they've become very much a policing force, using the people's own capital against them. And then we're seeing a lot more of that happen in more and more states. I know very much about the Washington and Oregon realm of it, just because of A, where I'm located, and B, my prior company, we were involved in third-party building departments. And it was always interesting. We would bid, or we'd go after work to help a building department or take over a small jurisdiction's building department. And we could do it at about 75% or 60 to 75% of what the permit fee was, and still make good money. Well, the state would come in and they were taking 90 to 100% of the permit fees, but because they were the state, they didn't even have to bid on it. They just basically said, that's nice, we're taking it over. So they're taking away all that excess revenue, the 25 to 40% away from the city that they would have gotten as revenue from the permits, and going, no, that's ours now. So very much an issue, and that affects everybody, because then they're able to go, well, we're going to increase permit fees. Well, does this go to any discussion? Nope, we're just going to increase them. Have a nice day. And everything's increased based on percentages. When somebody's like, oh, I got a 50-cent raise. Well, what was that relative percentage to how much you were making before? Oh, 1%. Well, everything else went up 6%. So your 50% or your 50 cents doesn't really matter. So you're taxed and you earn, your tax and investments go on percentages, not dollars and cents. So we're seeing a lot of that. The other thing is at a federal level, something that unfortunately, when material prices were already skyrocketing, the Biden administration went, hey, we're going to double tariffs on wood coming in from Canada. They were at about 9%, which was already really high. and they were going to double them to about 18% or just over 18%. Well, they're making the threat of it. We already got prices going through the roof. They're making the threat of it for months and months and months. So prices, market prices start adjusting for this threat of them doubling. Then the implementation then the threats kind of quieted down. So market started to come back, or material prices started to come back down. Then they actually passed it. And so then market went back up really, really quickly. And again, not much of this talked about in the news. And then they doubled it to 18%. And then they cut it back by 6%. Well, what did get a bunch of news coverage? Not the fact that they doubled it, or not the fact that it was 3.5% higher than what it was before, the fact that they cut it by 6%. So tariffs got increased by 3.5% on all wood products coming in from Canada. So what does that mean for people? Well, 85% of engineered materials, predominantly sheet goods and other engineered products, come out of Canada. So that's a pretty significant market of materials. And considering that most buildings, as in like 90% of buildings constructed in the US are constructed out of wood, pretty wide effect on everybody. So that's a big issue. What we are seeing is we're starting to see shifts to alternate materials. We're starting to work with our builders more to go into other methods of wall sheathing. Now those wall sheathings, alternate methods for wall sheathing, then couple with alternate siding, alternate insulation options. So it's all a value engineering prospect as that goes through there. But with I said, the use of ICF is becoming, I think, is becoming more prevalent. We already did my prior firm, we did a lot of ICF, and it used to just be kind of certain climates or certain regions of the U.S. were very had a nucleus of ICF, and we're seeing growth in that market.
Nice. First off, like, just these increases from code changes is insane. So one of the things that when I lived in Indiana, the Builders Association had majority control over what got implemented from a code standpoint to basically anything. And what that ended up doing was that if it cost any money, like if it was net like change in dollars, the Builders Association could veto it in Indiana. They basically had all the board seats for codes. So like Indiana really never updated any of their codes when it came to a lot of things, especially energy code. But then when we would run numbers for on commercial buildings, so we do our energy analysis for different building types, like the new code was actually worse off from like a electricity standpoint than older codes. Just more insulation. You didn't really have to heat more in the winter, but you had to have a ton more AC in the summer to get all that heat out that, just people and normal things generate on the building, which was always amazing to me whenever they ran that the newer codes were actually worse electrically and would cost more to install up front than the back end. But again, a lot of people don't do those calculations to actually see what's more beneficial for them from like that standpoint, and like simple cost things for like insulation being a prime example for a lot of these.
Very much so. Yeah, there has to be a return on investment. There has to be better, more flexibility. The one size fits all, it doesn't work. It just doesn't, and it hasn't. And so when you go, hey, this is what's applicable to the entire state, have a nice day. I mean, if you look
especially in the West, man, because like the most populous locations in Seattle and Washington are in rainforest. So therefore, like, you don't see the sun for half of the year. So putting solar on roofs like makes no sense whatsoever, because you're not going to see the sun. It's overcast. I lived on the coast. Like it's wet, it's damp for 6 months of the year. And then the other half, it's foggy until 2. So you have like 4 hours of sun in a day for the other 6 months of the year. Like, and
No
that
wonder they're
is
so
the
cranky.
yeah, like I mean, that's why, Portland is what it is,
Right.
like in Seattle, same thing. I lived on the southern coast where we like fished and logged, but still like it is depressing. And then you have the same in Northern California where, not everything in California is LA, where it doesn't
Right.
rain and it's sunny all the time. And, it's 112 on a
Yeah.
good day.
Well,
So
and we do have state by state codes that allow for some flexibility there, but they try and follow along with the national code. And then in with that, there's the energy conservation code that has broken up regions into zones. But with that said, it's also to the benefit of everybody if at a state level they go, hey, does this make sense for everybody? And we apply it there. So, one thing that happened in Oregon a few years back was wonderful Kate Brown there, and I can't understand how she's still the governor. She, by executive order, put in that all new homes would be pre-wired for a EV supercharger. All of them, including the low income housing.
there's 10 grand.
Right. So you're going to mandate that those are wired in, and then, okay, well, now you just added to the cost of construction, energy code stuff added to the cost of construction. You've got cities that refuse to expand their urban growth boundary. They just make lots smaller and smaller. Well, that creates inventory issues, which increases the cost of land. And then these same people then say, well, we need affordable housing. You're the reason we don't have affordable housing. like, that's especially in Oregon, Washington, California, none of those governors should ever say we need affordable housing. Well, yeah, look in the mirror. You're the reason we don't. That's what it is. I can't, we've looked at federal grants for doing affordable housing. I do developing as well. Like my money guy that will back me, he goes, cool, I'll help you with some affordable housing. You can't build in these states. And guess what? Oregon, Washington, California are number 1, 2, and 3 all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that, again, a lot of the work that I did was in Indiana, Kentucky, Midwest. Like those were fairly easy states to work with. They were easy to get things through. You could call the planning department, like stuff was straightforward. They weren't trying to hide anything, salt of the earth kind of people. And, that's, that's what it is, but that's also what you get in flyover country. So,
yeah, but I mean, you look at even outside of Texas, outside of Dallas, outside of Houston, you're still actually in city area and quick access into city. And really, if you compare that relative to what people drive, from getting from the outskirts of Seattle into Seattle, it's very similar.
yep.
But the difference is like we were looking in Texas. We were just shopping for houses in Texas. I could get around a 4,000 to 5,000 square foot brand new construction home on an acre with a pool and all the amenities for under $700,000. Go find something within 45 minutes of Portland or 45 minutes of Seattle that's under $700,000. It's 40 years old. It's a fixer. It's 1,800 square feet. There's a big reason those states don't have affordable housing. It's excessive regulation on everything. Like Texas, I mean, heck, Florida, we can get all those places. You don't have this massive government regulation. In the city of Eugene, I'm the development city of Eugene. I was $250,000 into a lot to build a spec home before I even broke ground. How are you supposed to build an affordable house with that?
You can't. You just can't.
Yeah, I mean, that was a standard like 60 by 110 lot, building a standard like 3 and 2 house. But once you got the cost of the lot, because the cost of the lot directly correlated to what the land inventory was, and then almost $100,000 in permits and system development charges, like, okay.
But said and done,
Yeah.
at least. Well, with that, Royal, I know
That
we're
was a
up
fun
on.
topic.
I mean, it's real though. Like, it's a real problem. Like, and
Yeah.
it's something that people need to know about. I mean, I am super glad that you brought it to light because, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big problem, and people wonder why housing costs go up. Well, I mean, that's just it. It's permits, it's regulation, it's the inability to build. We have that in my county, where I live in California. Like, we're
I'm sorry.
some of the worst. Yeah, I mean, it sucks to be able to build here. It's beautiful. Like, I love the everything about it except the politics and government. Like,
Right.
it's a beautiful place to be, but like, government gets in the way. And it's more at the state level. I mean, and then really at the local level, it's a pain in the ass to build. They just don't want anything to be built here. And that's a problem, that they don't want it to build here, yet they want, to your point, affordable housing. Well, you got to let people build and you got to make it easy for them.
Right.
So, like, there's a simple solution, but again, all this stuff has to be brought to light and really tracked back in just a logical way that you laid it out, and to bring up this stuff, to talk about it, is super important. And not that there's anything that we can do immediately other than, make sure that your votes count in now and then November. But outside of that, it's that you go to these meetings, you talk to your local people, you have conversations with all your construction guys, you go to the board meetings, you go to the energy code stuff, you go to and make your voice heard through these organizations that have influence upon what gets passed for energy codes and other regulation, and show ROIs. Because frankly, most people don't. They think energy code and improvement, and they think cost savings, when in fact, like we pointed out, that is not the case. Most people are disconnected from what it costs and what the actual energy savings is and the payback on it, which is just insane. Like, so I think that's really the solution here. Like, it's not an easy overnight fix. There's no quick things. I mean, the easy overnight fix would be to repeal all this stuff, but that takes some time and some doing
Yeah.
to
Well,
get to
and there's two things there's the two hardest things to do in life, or I would say pretty much impossible, is save somebody from themselves and get a politician to admit they were wrong. And if you're going to repeal anything, you're basically saying that politician was wrong. So that's that's why we don't see repeals. They pass stuff and then they're like, oh, well, maybe we'll consider. No. No. So.
With that, Royal, where can they find you?
So our plan site for our primary information site for all of our builders and gain access to our other websites is www.pleris.co. That's not .com, it's .co. Or you can go right to our plan library at plerisplans.com. If you are a house designer and you have a library plans you're looking to market, full contact information is on both of those websites. Myself, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I check every now so often, and then Pleris is Pleris Plans on both Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. And all the links will be in the show notes, guys. Go check out Royal, or if you know somebody building a home, give him a call. He'll help you out. With that, guys, we covered a lot of ground here today. I know we got into some heavy topics here at the end, but they're important. They're super important as to how we build, what inventory looks like, material costs, everything else that we're dealing with, and increases in just the cost of life. All really stems back to regulations and government overreach in most cases on how we build buildings and what we need to do to put them together to make sure that we're, in line with codes. So again, get out, talk to people about it. It's a big deal. It should be known. The next thing is really just in growing your team, making sure you have the right processes, the right management in place, and lead by example. If you don't have trust with your people and they don't trust you, you don't trust them, everything falls apart. And Royal, you're outstanding in that department, and really putting your team first, and that comes through here and talking about them, that it's team first, they do the right things, and really not talking about yourself. So again, kudos, hats off, man, you're doing a great job. at least from where I sit. Granted, I'm not in your organization, but from where I sit, doing a great job and leading by example and showing people, how things can be done and to give them those opportunities. So guys, go ahead, give Royal a follow and really just share this podcast around. It needs to be heard, needs to be shared with everybody on what's going on and what you can do to fix this problem. So thank you all so much for listening. Royal, thank you again for coming on and being a repeat guest here. Appreciate your insight into everything on the really team building, residential side, codes, prices. Great wealth of knowledge, man. Glad to have you on. And guys, that is this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Until next time.